Hi, this is Amy with the Hag Reads, and I am back with my daily vlog. Today I am looking at just one book, and it's probably going to take me a little bit of time to get through all of my thoughts on it. This is for One of Us is Lying by Karen M McManus, which has been described as the Breakfast Club with murder, which I think is a pretty apt description. And this will definitely have some spoilers in it, so if you have not read the book, you probably should not watch this video. I feel like I want to discuss it with spoilers because some of the issues that have been brought up in the negative reviews of this book, and it does have quite a few. Hold on one second, I'll get a little bit of statistics on that. So not as many as something like The Black Witch, which has at least as many 1 and 2 star reviews as it does 3 and 4 star or 4 and 5 star reviews. It's pretty equal with The Black Witch. Got a much less welcoming reception than this book did. This book, for the negative reviews or the things that people most complain about, included that they didn't appreciate the way mental health issues were addressed, and that the way sexuality was addressed in the book. And I agree that those are important issues, but I don't agree that they were poorly handled in this book. I think they were handled in a way that suggests that this is still, in 2017, that this is the way most people think of mental health issues. I'm speaking broadly of the general public, not of any specific group or class of people. I'm just thinking in terms of very general population opinions. And mental health issues are still largely uncomfortable for a lot of people, and they tend to be stereotyped as, if you have one, you should be ashamed, and I don't think that that should be the case anymore. It's most often a chemical or a biological issue that the person who's experiencing it may not necessarily have control over, or if they do, it's a real struggle for them. But a lot of people have mental health issues, and it's still shameful to admit that you have them. People are considered brave if they're willing to come out and tell people their experience with a mental health issue, and that's a shame, because if we were not so driven to feel ashamed of a mental health issue, I think that people would get the treatment they need, that they might not cycle so far down into a spiral as they do now, because they feel like they have to keep it hidden, that they have to present this shiny, happy face to the world, and that they will be ostracized, or, various other outcomes that might affect their job or their home life if it becomes apparent to their larger social circles that they have mental health issues, whether they're minor or major. And I think this book deals with it in a way that deals with these issues in a way that opens it up as a discussion topic. Yes, it's going to make you uncomfortable. No, it's not a gentle portrayal of mental health issues. I think it's meant to open a dialogue about all the things that are wrong with the way we handle, especially young people who are probably more ashamed than adults to talk about their mental health issues, and who would probably get a much harsher treatment from their peers than adults might. Children have a tendency to cruelty in groups, and I think that today, with social media and iPhones and laptops and tablets and stuff, they're dealing with issues that were never an issue before. If you did something stupid when I was a kid, people might hear about it, But now they can see a video of it. They can see 50 videos of it. It lives on the internet forever. One stupid action can maybe not ruin your life, but it will certainly stick around for a long time, so that even possibly when you're an old grandma, there's still this dumb shit you did on the computer that somebody took a video of and posted with not good intentions in mind. It was their intention to shame you and to humiliate you. And I am thankful to no end that this was not an issue I had to deal with when I was growing up, because I was sexually promiscuous, and I can only imagine the outcome today. So there are so many more issues for boys and girls, men and women, to have to deal with than ever before, and much more risk of a single indiscreet moment going viral on the internet, and for you having to deal with it in a very public way. Something that should be probably a minor and unimportant incident in your life can take over your whole life for at least a short period of time, and can hang around for a long time afterwards. So I think this book should be read by young adults. It should probably be read by a lot of people, including adults, and it would make a great discussion, a book discussion. I cannot get it together today. It would be good for a book discussion group. I think this opens up a lot of topics for discussion, and it would make a great in-class discussion in the right environment. It could also just cause more problems, but I think that even if nobody ever talks about it, if enough people read it and really think about what about it makes you uncomfortable, that you're gonna be maybe less judgmental about some of the things that are brought up in this book. Maybe not, but I think that the more books there are that bring this type of issue to the forefront and deal with broad societal reactions to this sort of thing, open up the dialogue of how we can change how these things are handled both before and after for more positive outcomes, because that's not happening now, and it doesn't appear to be getting any better. So there's still lots of often enough with mass shootings or other types of student-on-student violence on school campuses, both high school and college, that this type of book opens up the possibility of dialogue about how we could deal with these things differently. And that's what I think is good about this book. So, Stabby Breakfast Club. The Brain is the character Bronwyn, who is she's a biracial character, and she is trying to live up to the family tradition of attending Yale. So she has this stigma of perfection that's thrust upon her by her family, and to some degree her peers. She's expected to be a certain way academically, and that also should be reflected in how she dresses and how she acts. And then there's the jock Cooper, who's talented enough that he could probably get into the baseball minor leagues. There's, of course, the delinquent, which is Nate, who has an alcoholic father, an absent, mentally ill mother, and is dealing drugs to get by, because his father, receives a disability settlement, but then spends it all on alcohol. So it's basically come down to him paying the bills and providing food for the family if he just wants to live. There's the princess character, which is Addie, and she is presented at least in the beginning of the book, as a shallow, girly girl. She's one half of this perfect couple. And of all the characters at the beginning, before I started to realize what the story arc was going to be, I liked her the least, because she was very shallow, very immature, lived her life for her boyfriend, and for just being part of this couple. And then I guess there's the weirdo character. This is the one that had some people were saying that he wasn't part of the original 5 if you looked at it from a Breakfast Club perspective. But I think that he would be the modern day Ali Sheedy character, the weirdo or the, the outcast. He is very smart and talented, obviously, but he has a huge chip on his shoulder about his social position in the school. And what he's done to remedy that is not to do anything about his personality or how he approaches people or anything like that, is to create a very malicious gossip app that puts everybody's dirty laundry out there. And while he doesn't specifically name names, he makes it very apparent who his targets are and what they've done. And essentially he's ruining people's lives. And I don't know how he got away with having this website or this social app. I don't understand enough about how that sort of thing works, but like that his parents didn't stop him, that legally he was not stopped, that and it's a high school thing, but it's extremely malicious, mean-spirited, and I'm surprised he wasn't, before it ever got to this point, pursued legally by any of the parents, by the school itself, and how his parents, it was widely known publicly among the teachers, students, and parents that he had this website or this app, and that he was posting very malicious things about his fellow students in an attempt to shame them publicly, and that his parents let it happen. And then they got really indignant about the fact that he was dead, because that is the premise. These 5 people go to detention, and then the guy drops dead while they're all in there. And sorry, my eyes are watering today. My allergies are very active right now, and for me that means itchy, watery eyes is one of my major symptoms. So I don't understand, first, why his parents would allow this sort of thing. Like, I can't imagine. I've raised 4 children. I can't imagine sitting back and allowing them, however accurate he and his sources were, allowing my child to basically attempt to ruin the reputation of people and to publicly shame them. Being on board with that, because I know we have a tendency to throw people's dirt out there and then to make fun of them, but for one student to be doing this to an entire student body, to me it feels like he's terrorizing them in a way. And I don't mean that in but it's for people living in fear. Yes, if you don't do anything wrong, you have nothing to fear. But how far would it go if people stopped cheating and, doing stupid things? And we're talking about teenagers here who make mistakes and make impulsive choices that are not always good. So people are being called on the carpet for things that are pretty much stereotypical for, this age group. So-and-so's boyfriend was making out under the bleachers with so-and-so's girlfriend. Well, that kind of stuff just happens. It's hormones and teenagers being stupid teenagers. But to be constantly called out on that, and how far would he have been willing to take it? So if people stopped doing that because they were afraid of being exposed, then how far down the line does he go to digging into people's personal lives to get dirt on them? Because everybody has something they don't want other people to know, even if it's not a bad thing. You value your privacy, and you don't want all of your stuff put out on the internet by somebody who just feels like he's got this giant chip on his shoulder because he didn't get what he deserved. And that's what this all boils down to in the end. So let me pause for a minute and collect my notes, and then I'll come back because I've been ranting for 14 minutes rather indignantly. Okay, this is where it's going to get spoilery. I'm going to now dissect the characters and what they did wrong, or what was exposed about them that might not necessarily be wrong in the traditional sense. So the Brain Bronwyn, straight A's, 4.0 GPA in advanced classes, AP classes for college credit later on, and so on, whose parents are wealthy and Colombian American. So she's a first generation American in this family, and there's already a tradition of excellence and being wealthy for them, and also immigrants. I think the father um, is not particularly receptive to other people because he's always afraid he's going to be portrayed a certain way because he is Colombian. Um, so her secret, and here I'm totally going to spoil it, her secret is that she cheated in a class. She got in and got all the test information because a teacher left the information open on a computer and she put it on a flash drive, and she cheated her way through the class because she just didn't understand the material, and it was for only the one class. And you can't condone that kind of thing, but does somebody else have the right to post it publicly? It would be another thing maybe if he'd gone to the administration and said, look, I know this thing happened. But the additional kicker here is it had been done a year previously. He's waiting an entire year on almost all of these secrets. For almost everybody in here, he's waited almost an entire year to expose whatever their secret is. And then there's Cooper, the baseball jock, who it turns out, and they wait a long time in the book to reveal this, that his character's gay. So initially you're led to believe he's just cheating on his girlfriend, who is a beautiful, talented, and basically she's his beard, because he wants everybody to assume that he's straight and quote-unquote normal. He's afraid that colleges and the minor league as a sports institution will not offer him athletic scholarships or minor league deals or contracts, whatever's the terminology there, if he is found out to be gay or if he were to be openly gay. So that's his secret, is that he's gay and he's been hiding it. And he gets a pretty good character arc. We find out that his father is homophobic in a pretty extreme way, saying things like, I guess, they talk about in the book that there's this one either major or minor league baseball player who's openly gay, and the father makes comments like straight players shouldn't have to deal with this sort of thing, or regular guys shouldn't have to deal with this sort of thing. And so his father is not at least initially accepting. Towards the end of the book, it does appear that he's coming around, but Cooper has an amazing grandma who essentially already knew and was very supportive of him, and so was his brother, whom he expected would have his father's opinion, but was just like, he didn't care, that was his brother, he loved him anyway. So, but to be thrust out into the public when you don't want to be is, I can't condone that, because I feel like everybody should be able to be out if they want to be, and to be safe in being out. But I don't feel like it's anybody else's job to tell other people that a person is gay. If they don't want to be out, that's no one else's business. Especially Major League Sports, while they may profess outwardly that they're accepting of any type of person, I don't think that sports culture is very accepting of homosexuality. Even today, even as advanced as I think we are becoming, it's much more accepting for gay and, the whole alphabet soup of alternative lifestyles in terms of sexuality. We're still have not gone far enough, and it's still, I don't think, safe for a lot of people to be out, especially in rural communities, in certain types of career fields, particularly sports, where machismo is a very big thing, and where, nobody wants to say it, but having a gay guy in the locker room, makes a lot of men uncomfortable. So there's just a reality there that we haven't come that far, that whatever your sexual orientation is, people in the locker room, you're there to shower and change. You're not necessarily there to stare at people's junk, whether you're a lesbian or a transgender person or a homosexual male. Whatever you're in there for, it's unlikely that you went in there to check out men surreptitiously because you have access to a wide variety of naked people. Um, it's like the bathroom thing. It's just a ridiculous. I think it's completely unfounded. Just fear mongering. And then you have so you got Cooper, Nate, the bad boy. His father's an alcoholic. He comes off as very this kind of I don't care about anything character. But it turns out that, he's dealing drugs, but what he's trying to do is keep the lights on at home, keep the heat on, keep food in the house, and he's barely making that happen. His father's an alcoholic, and his mother is absent from the house, and she has had mental health issues in the past. And so he's really raising himself, and it turns out that even if you want to condemn the drug dealing activity, because obviously that's not a positive outcome, but he makes more at it than he could at a job, and he's still trying to go to school. So you kind of understand his rationale, even though I don't agree with the action itself. But that he's actually a pretty introspective person, that he cares a lot more than he appears to on the surface underneath, and he gets paired with Bronwyn as the story goes on, and it's a lovely character arc for both of them, a nice growth arc, to see how the other half lives, because Nate is kind of in abject poverty and Bronwyn is extremely privileged. So some interesting dynamics there. Addie, the blonde, perfect, cheerleader type girl who's the homecoming queen, one half of this perfect couple. When you first encounter her, it's the kind of character you're like, ugh, she's just this super shallow, doesn't really think about anything, is only interested in how she looks and being there for her boyfriend and all of that kind of stuff. But as the story goes on, she really does get an amazing character arc, and what it turns out is that she's in an abusive relationship. She's in a relationship with a controlling person, and her parents are, for the large part, I mean, Bronwyn's parents are there, but they're very judgmental of, very conscious of how she presents herself to the world, and in her not embarrassing them in any way. So in every one of these character situations, but we don't really get to know Simon's parents other than they appear a couple of times, but I can't imagine that they were very good parents, just in the fact that they let him, or were largely unaware, which I don't know how they could possibly be unaware of all of the gossip things going on with his app or his website, whatever it was. Have parents who are not very available to them. So, Cooper's father is homophobic. Bronwyn's parents care more about her image than how she really feels about anything, or what she might want for herself. Nate's father is an alcoholic. His mother is absent, at least at the beginning of the story. He does get a nice character arc development with her when she comes back into his life that I really enjoyed, and that I thought treated mental illness very respectfully. Her character, was flawed, was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and went off and joined, a cult, and was living in a commune, kind of 1960s hippie style. And so she just was kind of an addictive personality. And so you have this father and mother relationship there where obviously they were feeding off one another. And then the mother just disappeared for about, close to 10 years. And then she comes back, and she has gotten sober and kind of had some people that were supportive in her life, and their relationship, Nate and the mother's relationship, trying to get past their past and to rebuild something for the future. I thought that was portrayed positively. I thought that was a good representation, and definitely something that could open up dialogue in a book discussion or a classroom or therapy sessions. Having read this book, it would certainly provide a leaping off point for a larger discussion. And then Addie's mother is a serial monogamist. She goes from man to man to man, and they seem to be getting perpetually younger, and I guess so they're really just there for them for being a plaything. They aren't, it's not really a family dynamic. But the mom is basically telling Addie, make sure you get a man. It's all for her about presenting herself in basically as a doormat to get a man, because that's the only way she could possibly, get along in life, is to find a man to take care of her. It never enters into the mother's train of thought that Addie is a perfectly intelligent, capable girl who could go out and get an education, or, that she's capable of supporting herself. Like, it's a very skewed dynamic, and I think that there's still a portion of women who behave and think this way in today's society, but I think it's a largely outdated, way to think about women and their place in society and what they're supposed to do. It's not a woman's job just to find a man who makes enough money to take care of her and who is good looking. Like, that's basically the criteria, is that her boyfriend is on I don't know if it's a doctor or a lawyer track, I don't remember now, but on track for a successful career later in life, and is the, quintessential good-looking teenage boy, athletic and all of that sort of thing. So the mom perceives him as a fine catch for her daughter, and disgustingly even flirts with him as if, she were the love interest as opposed to her daughter, and is very critical of her daughter and how she looks and how she dresses and how she presents her physical self. She doesn't seem to care anything about her educational capabilities, her own wants and desires. So Addie has basically learned to be a doormat, and to the point of she goes to the door for, they're going to go out to some kind of bonfire party, and she goes to the door in kind of I guess yoga pants and a sweatshirt, and with her hair up in a ponytail, and the boyfriend tells her, this is how you're going out, and she's like, yeah, it's going to be cold and I just want to be comfortable. And this is at the point where everything has kind of fallen apart, and the Simon character is dead, and they're being investigated, and all of these sorts of things. And he tells her, no, go upstairs and change into something cute. I'm not taking you out while you look like this. And she does. And, that was at the point at which I was like, really? You're going to just accept that from him? And the mom tells her, several times, I don't know why you would even try and go out like that. Why are you dressing like that? And that sort of thing. Luckily, because of the situation with the investigation, and Addie kind of being socially ostracized, she kind of starts seeing her boyfriend in a different light, and in interacting with these other 4 people who are part of the same investigation, other parts of her personality start to come out, and she really does have an amazing character development, because she went from essentially a doormat to a very assertive character who has come a long way and who thinks more highly of herself. And even at the end, her secret was that she had cheated with one of her boyfriend's best friends, and I thought they made a cute couple, but the author made the decision that she told the guy, after the boyfriend had broken up with her and all of this, that he wanted to be in a relationship with her, and I thought they were cute together and that he was a much better match. She basically told him, I don't want to be in a relationship with anybody right now. I need to figure my own shit out. And I thought that was really amazing. That's a good message for teenage girls who often, I think, even to this day, talking to my son about his friends, when he was in high school, so he was still presenting as, I've lost the word, as pansexual, not really preferring boys or girls, and not particularly feeling male or female. My son is biologically female, so lots of his friends presented this type of dynamic where everything was about being in a relationship and being together with this person, And she really, or he really prefers to hang out with people who, yeah, it's fine if you're in a relationship, but you should still have your own interests and your own friends. You shouldn't be hanging off of every word your boyfriend says. It, he has quite progressively always felt like if you're in a relationship, that's great, but it shouldn't define who you are, and that shouldn't be all that makes you who you are, is being a part of this relationship. So I'm proud of that, but I feel like there's still a pretty good swath of teenage girls where it's all about being somebody's girlfriend, about getting into a relationship, about because hormones are going wild. So of course it's going to be, at least to some degree, like that. But I'm seeing a bigger shift in, at least, he's not in high school anymore, so I don't have any more contact with that age range. But I feel like it's becoming more where people hang out in groups. There's while there is pairing up, people still kind of do their own thing. It's not as it's presented with Nate and Addie, where if she's not with him, she's nothing, and she just sits at home waiting for him. And her friends might come over, but she doesn't go out on her own, and she doesn't seem to have any of her own interests or hobbies, or, never makes her preferences known. It's always what he wants to do. And so I think we're seeing a move away from that, but we haven't quite got there yet. So you still see kind of girls like this, not necessarily in an abusive relationship, but where the relationship defines who they are. And there's more of an interest in leaving one relationship and getting into another than there is in just being yourself. And if a relationship comes along, great. I think we're finally seeing more of a split in those camps, and more people are coming over to the, if I'm in a relationship, great, but that's not how I define myself. And then you have the Simon character, who is presented for all intents and purposes extremely bright, intelligent, pretty genius with computer programming, with a huge chip on his shoulder, though, because he has never really been socially accepted. And here's where it comes into the interesting part, is he has this app where he's basically outing all people's secrets, and he feels perfectly justified doing it. But he's also got this kind of goth chick best friend who, as the story progresses, becomes kind of more and more neurotic at crying in the bathroom. And so Addie develops a friendship with this girl. And so we get to kind of see another side of Simon, the side that was a friend to her, but also his developing neurosis. He's the one, with the true mental issue here. It comes out as the story goes on that he was on 4chan, and he was on these, discussion threads with people obsessed with school shootings, but not in the fascinated with why it happens. Why are these killers so unoriginal? They always go in and shoot a bunch of people, and then they shoot themselves. How unoriginal! And so it comes out that they're in detention, and he dies, and they find out it's through a peanut allergy. Somebody had laced a drinking cup with peanut oil, and then had taken out had removed his own personal EpiPen, had removed them all from the nurse's office. And so essentially he dies from this. And this is the really, really big spoiler. I'm going to tell you who the killer is. So if you have stayed up to this point and been okay with it, it's a huge twist in the book, and it's actually very well done. So if you have not read the book, really you shouldn't listen to this part of me rambling on about this, because it's a big part of reading the book, of the shock of it all. So stop now if you have not read the book. I implore you to stop now. Simon killed himself. So none of them is guilty. They go through all of this horrible poking into their lives and social ostracization. They're ostracized. They're basically, all of their friends, with a very few, kick them to the curb, and they all wind up, kind of in this, trying to figure it out together, meeting as a murder club, trying to figure out what has happened. But it turns out in the end that he did it, and this was his unique twist on um, the mass killings at schools, he kills himself, blames others, and he has this very elaborate, drawn out plan that he's left with this one goth friend, um, who did not want him to commit suicide, and who is becoming increasingly depressed and suicidal about what she knows. And then she becomes friends with Addie, who she saw as this, you know, unattainable friend, the kind of girl that would never pay her even a minute's worth of attention. Really is shown to be a caring character, becomes a true friend, is really interested in why she's so upset and what's going on, and trying to help her deal with her friend's suicide. So that's a conflict for the goth girl, because she was supposed to, when it all comes out at the end, the further twist with Addie's boyfriend, when it all comes out at the end, Addie was supposed to be the one that got blamed, and that this big elaborate plot was that their lives would be ruined, and a year later the reveal would be the release of some notes or a manifesto, and then a video of Simon gloating about how he committed suicide and ruined their lives as a result, screwed up all of their future plans, because presumably Bronwyn, as a result of the cheating allegation and her involvement in all of the ensuing aftermath of his death, would have killed her Yale career, would have ruined Cooper's baseball career, would have, I don't know how much it would have affected Nate, but he already had a bad reputation. So I think, he was kind of, I guess, collateral damage to my thinking. Would have certainly ruined Addie, because she would have gone to jail. She would have, the way it was set up, she was meant to go to jail over this. She was meant to take the blame. And then Simon, who would have been basically a martyr for that whole year, then gloatingly revealing his master plan through his friend. So this is where people say the mental illness aspect was not treated appropriately. There was clearly, Simon had mental health issues. He was depressed, and he had pathological thinking in terms of he had been deliberately excluded from some social events related to homecoming, even though he was on the homecoming committee. And so that was kind of the start of his plight, but it had begun before that. He felt like he didn't get the credit he deserved for, like, he was never socially accepted in the way that he felt he should for his intelligence and all of that kind of. He always felt like Bronwyn overshadowed him, and even when he had the chance to go into the spotlight, she cheated, and he felt like he got cheated out of his due because he was clearly smarter than her. And in that subject, I guess he was, but instead of a friendly competition, he became incensed about this and was essentially plotting to bring her down a whole year. Like, he spent a year developing this whole thing. So this was really a master plan. And, Cooper, he felt like they had been friends, but when he became an athlete, he kind of left Simon behind. Like, they had been really close friends in elementary school. And then he kind of kicked Simon to the curb when he became popular as an athlete. Again, I still think Nate was kind of collateral damage. I can't recall any specific events where Simon kind of felt like Nate had slighted him in some way. But also, Simon felt like Cooper had ruined his chances with the girlfriend, with Cooper's girlfriend, and I can't remember her name, but she was a cute little character, and Simon had been trying to move in on her, and he felt like Cooper stole his thunder there, and then to find out that he was gay and he didn't even really want to be with her. So he, again, a further kind of kick in the gut of this incensed feeling of being, not getting your due, feeling like people are maybe even deliberately screwing you out of what's rightfully yours. And then Addie, just the perfect princess. It turns out that I think that Simon himself had more of a beef with Bronwyn and Cooper than with Addie herself. But what we find out is the final really twisty conclusion is that Addie's boyfriend is completely unhinged. He's also mentally unstable, and when he finds out that she's cheated well before also, and he goes into this partnership with Simon and the goth chick, and changes, I think, Simon's ultimate plan. I don't think Addie was his ultimate target, but because the boyfriend, how dare she cheat on him, extremely controlling. It comes out, he tries to kill her at the end of the book, like just strangle her. His rage is so this is like, I'm not sure if it's sociopathic or psychopathic, but this cool and calculated. He placed the phones that got them in detention. He set up many of the components that needed to fall into place once Simon had killed himself. And he ultimately was ensuring that the goth girl stayed on track, because she was starting to feel, I think, kind of a form of buyer's remorse with her part in all of this. And I think she had not intended to follow through with her part of the plan. Even if she never said anything about the video or the manifesto, she didn't intend to plant the evidence, until she was forced by the boyfriend. And even then, she put it in Nate's locker and tried to blame him because she had become friends with Addie. So you're dealing with several kinds of mental instability. The goth girl who was kind of in a codependent relationship with Simon and didn't agree with his decisions but went along with it. Simon, who was clearly some mental health instability issues, and then the boyfriend, whoa. And no, they weren't handled in a way that, kid gloves and let's be, politically correct and ultra sensitive, and suggest it's not presented in a way that I think social justice warriors kind of want, where you're not allowed to talk about mental health issues, where, people say, well, he was just crazy. He deserves what he got, and how could anybody behave this way, and that sort of thing. But I think what happens is, if you're talking about the boyfriend or Simon or even the goth girl, when it's put out there the way that it is, and even dealing with Cooper's homosexuality and his homophobic father, these are things that make people feel extremely uncomfortable. And I think that what it should do is open up a dialogue, either introspectively or with others, with regards to why does that make you feel uncomfortable? Do you see part of yourself in that? Do you see friends or family, that some aspect of that character or what they've done in your friends and family, in society at large? Why does that make you feel uncomfortable? Why does it have such a visceral, knee-jerk reaction with you? And I think it's a great opening to dialogue about these kinds of issues and better ways to deal with them. Instead of just coming out and saying, well, this is insensitive and you shouldn't read it. The treatment of the mental health and sexuality issues in the book are not done in a way that's positive and, helpful. But I think that they're not insensitively handled. I think they're handled in a way that would be real life, and that it opens up the possibility of discussion, of thinking introspectively, of, dialoguing with family, with young people, I just feel like it's a great opportunity to address these issues and how they're currently perceived by the general public and by institutions in general. How did it get to that point where Simon could kill himself and blame other people? How did nobody see this coming? How did his parents not see it coming, that he was, reaching this point where he was willing to kill himself to ruin the lives of at least 3 other people, and 4 by default? I think just because Nate was perpetually in detention that he got sucked into this. I don't think he was a specific target. He was just an easy patsy because of the type of character that he was. And granted, it was very heavy-handed with his character in terms of being the bad boy. It was, for that trope, extremely heavy-handed. But in the end, most of the characters had a very good kind of redemptive arc. They had a lot of growth and personal development throughout the whole story. And I thought the ending, was good. But what I think most of all is that this isn't a book that you should ignore because other people are saying, well, it's not treated with kid gloves, all of these issues. They're not presented in a positive, helpful, healthy way. But the actions that happen in this book are not positive, healthy, or helpful. This is an opportunity to discuss issues that are still, hot button issues in today's society. Even today, you're still having, school violence and this kind of social media shaming that goes on. And so this is an excellent tool. This book, it's well written, it's an engaging, entertaining story. I couldn't stop reading. I literally stayed up till 4 in the morning to finish the book. I reached a point where I was like, I just have to know the end. And I was reading and reading and reading. So it was very engaging. This is a book I would buy for my personal library. So that's the hallmark of a good book for me. I didn't give it 5 stars. I gave it 4 stars. And there were a few issues, which at the 45-minute mark that I'm not going to discuss, I feel like it dealt with the topics of sexuality, in various forms of mental health issues in a realistic and accessible way, and that what it should do is not encourage you to run screaming in the other direction because it treated some subjects in a sort of heavy-handed way, but as a way to engage in further thought and discussion about these topics and these larger issues that face, particularly young people and younger with these social media and phones with cameras and all of this sort of thing. I think it's an excellent tool to use in addition to being an engaging and entertaining book. So that's all I have to say about it. I certainly didn't mean to go on this long. If you stayed this long, thank you. If you have thoughts about this book, I would love to hear them, because not everybody has the same, opinions. And I could certainly be wrong about a lot of things. If you feel differently about how the subject matter was treated, I'd love to hear it. If you feel the same, I'd love to engage in a conversation about that. However you feel, if you have a response and you'd like to make it, I am welcome to it. Happy whatever time of day it is for you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Bye!